do a daily devotional with my wife. And yesterday, we got this passage in the New Testament where it says, be content with what you got. But it doesn't say, don't keep growing. It just says, be content with what you have right now. And that is, I wish I would have learned that 20 years ago, because the problem is that I was always putting my happiness when I reached this certain amount of money.
Right, right.
So I'll be happy when I make $1 million. And then I made $1 million and I felt empty still. Oh, I'll be happy when I make this much more. And every time I was raising the bar, going to an empty place at the end and sacrificing my wife, my health, everything for getting that extra number. But what if you are already happy with what you have right now and still reach the goal? Welcome to the Break Free Podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. Today we have with us a very successful coach, expert in business, Tim Redmond. Welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
David, it's great to be here. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to diving in here because I want to grab these business owners of yours that you influence. I just want to grab them by the collar and say, let's go big, man. Let's go big or let's go home.
That's beautiful.
I hope we can move the needle today with some real practical training.
That's fantastic. Tell me, how do you get into business coaching?
Well, I tell you, I've had a desire of this for a while, but in college I studied accounting. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're a worldwide company. And then I joined a software company. We grew that for about 15 years. We grew it from just 2 of us to about 400 employees, about $40 million a year in revenue. And we sold that to Intuit. And then I started a nonprofit after we sold that. And I traveled all over the world. I was going to start saying in Spanish, but in Central and South America, and in Southeast Asia, throughout Europe, Russia, Ukraine. We've been all over training people on leadership and how to grow their organization. So I speak with business groups, pastor groups, political leaders, just leaders in different spheres here just to help them grow their business. So many times when I would teach on a growth concept of how to improve or how to grow your organization, people would come up to me and ask me and said, would you coach? I go, sure. Ask me your question. I'll coach you right here. Not realizing that there are coaching organizations, some of them generating millions of dollars a year, like we do now. And so I just was given all this free coaching, not realizing. So about 10 years ago or so, not quite 10 years ago, I switched to a full-time focus of coaching and really developing great systems around the type of clients we serve. And we really get the needles moving in their business, not just their sales and profits or cash flow management, their marketing. Most people waste money in marketing, but also just really getting the business from owning them and turning around where they own a business. And the business is a vehicle that lets them live the lifestyle they want. And so that's what we help people do. I get up early in the morning and because I have a blast doing this. Love it.
It's funny that most people go into business to find freedom, and what they find is another jail, right?
That jail is called JOB. It's like they went out there and bought a job here thinking that they own a business, but they're working a job and the business owns them, right? That's what I wake up early, just knowing. I mean, for instance, I had a guy, he's 68 now. His name is Mike, and he built sheds in Arkansas, and he had a pretty good business, about $100,000 a month, but he wasn't making any profit, barely enough to pay him, had no money in retirement, had no money. This is like when he was 65, 66, had no money in retirement, couldn't travel anywhere. And now he's around $500,000 a month, $600,000 a month in sales, what he is construction. He's got about a 15% profit now. He's making 50, 75, sometimes $100,000 a month in profit. So he chases his wife around this condominium that he bought down in Florida, where he spends 3 weeks a month there, 1 week a month at home. He gives to his church. He helps with a program to help kids without dads, and his retirement fund is full and getting better by the day, and that's the kind of stuff that we love to help people to create those kind of stories. So
that's beautiful. Going back to that story, I was in corporate for 10 years in multinationals as senior management in software consulting and services for internal people, right? For internal companies. And
right.
I always thought that I was in jail. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to become a software consultant so I could have freedom of time. That's what I wanted most, freedom of time.
Right.
And from working, 10 hours a day, I started working 15, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then
the freedom to work more, the freedom to have to cover your own insurance and own benefits. And
yeah. So I know exactly what you mean. And thank you for your service, because a lot of entrepreneurs needs you. I opened my eyes when I actually had a heart attack. I was working so much. I was so focused on the money that my brain and my heart was so unaligned that my heart gave up. And that was beautiful. It was the best thing that could happen to me, because then I realized that everything that I was doing was for nothing. I was overworking. I was losing my family, especially my wife. And I had nothing to show for at the end, because everything was around the ego and around how many millions I could sell. And I never paid attention on how much money I was making, to your point, right? So I changed my life around, and it took me from 2012, this was 2011. So from 2011 to 2014 to really grow myself into a successful entrepreneur, right?
Well, and now you're a gift to many people. And so you think about that when you have a business, you need to build it on a foundation of the 5 F's. I'm sure you've heard about that. Your faith, or whatever your spirituality is, your family, your wife, and your kids, and what's even beyond that. You've got your fitness. I had one guy that told me, hey, if I lose my body, I lose my ticket to stay on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
So you have your fitness, of course, you have your finances, and then you have your friends, and all 5 of those things, your business should enhance and not rob you from that. So that's where some, I even hire coaches to help me stay on track. I take my own medicine. Matter of fact, I've got 4 coaching organizations that I've hired right now at different aspects of my business. So it's really important to stay focused on what is your business. It's a vehicle, and I believe your business is your primary purpose of your business. Debatable. Your primary purpose of your business is to serve the owner. Now, the owner, if he doesn't serve his customers, the business won't serve him. If he doesn't serve his employees, the business won't serve him. But we've got to design the business so that the business really works for the owner and their family.
Such a great point. For me, when I see a company, a business, I don't get impressed by numbers anymore, right? What I see is if the entrepreneur is truly free, and if he can turn down a sell offer because he's already set, that's a successful business, right?
Yes.
And that's what it is, right? Like for me, I have the privilege of spending my time, actually investing my time in helping out. This podcast is one of the highlights of my week. I get to bless unconditionally, and I get to help people that are going through the problems that I went through. So if I can save somebody a heart attack, or if I can save somebody from going bankrupt and becoming a successful enterprise, that's what this all about. Because when a business owner becomes successful, you have a ton of people behind that gets blessed, their employees, and also the clients gets blessed, because everything is about solving a problem, isn't it? If we had no problems, we had no businesses.
Yeah. It's and when look at entrepreneurs that have a rough time, sometimes they've got a skewed view of reality. I know I've struggled with this, David, where, I want to just, my prayer is, Lord, let me not have any problems today. It's like, well, that's another way of praying this. Lord, let me not have any opportunities to grow, And I had one, he was a marriage coach at one time and just a brilliant psychologist. And he said, hey, reality is that you're in a problem, or you're coming out of a problem, or you're about to come into another problem. But that is the constant that you're going to have. So how do you process that?
Yeah.
Is it a place of joy and opportunity, or is it a place of drudgery and regret? And your attitude really does have a lot to do with your ability to solve the problem. That if your mind is closed, you're not going to see the opportunities that are going to be there to solve the issue that is starving for your leadership to wake up and to stand up to solve it.
It's crazy because I was one of those guys. God, please give me no problems today. Now you know what I pray for? I said, God, give me the strength to go through the problems that you want me to go through so I can grow more, so I can help people grow more.
We're praying from the same prayer book here, my friend.
Because I've been in business for over 17 years now. I've been writing code since 1988. I've been married for 33 years, and I know for sure the common denominator is problems, right?
Yeah.
It's just your attitude that
changes, been married
right?
33 years too, so we're
congratulations.
I think we're a statistical minority, but I don't think I'm even halfway done yet. So there I go.
Wonderful. So tell me, you went from being an accountant to opening up a software business. How did that change from your full-time job, where you were protected and you had job stability? How did you jump into business? What made you decide to do that?
Yeah, well, I was really I was an entrepreneur hiding behind the cloak or the outside clothing of being an accountant. I remember being in advanced accounting, talking about all the businesses I wanted to start, and so I've always felt that way, and I've read books that way, and so the public accounting gave me a lot of good foundation. But I was just there for about 2.5 years, and the software company I joined there was founded by another guy also by the name of Tim, and so together we grew it. But it was a software company designed to create tools for other CPAs. So it was in an area of my expertise, and we just grew it until we had again $40 million of renewable revenue a year. And so that's where Intuit said, hey, we want to buy you, and we sold them for a real good price. And
how long did it take you to do that? How long did it take you to go from nothing to a sell, to an exit?
Well, it's the early days is we did all direct mail, and so we would do just a few hundred letters at a time, and a few thousand letters at a time, and then we had 10,000 and 20,000, and within about from 1986 to about 1993, we started sending out about 1.2 million pieces every year, because we grew our staff up to be able to handle it, and we advertised as long as we saw that was a good return on it,
Right.
And so I was watching that very carefully, but it didn't happen overnight, but because of a focus and having a really stern hand on just moving forward, it really made a difference. One of the things that really helped us out, David, is, and there's something I like to tell people this, and I'm hoping this is hopeful to your business owners. You can widen your reach by narrowing your focus. Widen your reach by narrowing your focus. And so we had a very specific type of accountant or CPA or tax preparer that we were looking for, and we went after them. with everything we had. And anybody that even remotely looked like that, we were knocking on their door, and we made it really easy for them to take the first step towards us. And so that's the thing is it's, there's so many people, they're trying to be all things to all people. And they think, well, I don't want to just solve this problem because I can solve other problems. I know, but if you narrow your focus and you become the expertise in something, then you can widen your reach within the group of people. There's a huge group of people that has that one problem. So, and I'm not just have a one trick pony and that's it, but I'm just saying start with a narrow focus of, what is the problem you solve? What's the needle you can move? How can you make a difference here? Well, if they have any problem in business, okay, well, what about spa companies that they have a high turnover of estheticians that they're as flighty as the day is long, and so we're how do we solve that problem? Or, so don't be afraid of focusing in on it. We found we focused in on contractors, home builders, remodelers, construction companies, plumbers, electricians, any kind of contractor service business. We help out with that. We also help with specialty docs, pain doctors and emergency centers and chiropractors and ENTs. And so we focus very narrowly on a couple of groups of people, and it's just our business has just exploded from that. Now we're serving over 150 clients on a weekly basis, and we're hoping to double that here in the next couple of years.
It's beautiful. So it helped you on your first business, and now you're applying the same skills on the other business. Now, you don't get smart just by reading books, right? You get smart by failing. So tell me, what has been your biggest failures in business, and how do you overcome
it? Okay. So, David, you want me to go like this and show all my battle scars here?
Exactly.
I'll tell you what one big problem is just what I'm talking about. And Seth Godin wrote a book about 20 years ago called The Purple Cow. And that's a problem that I had was I was trying to be all things to all people instead of really getting very focused and then really finding what was my purple cow. What do you mean purple cow? Well, he talks about in this book that he was taking a vacation in France, and they were driving out of Paris and going by the countryside and passing farms with cows on them. And the two little kids in the back said, "Oh, look, daddy, look, a cow, a cow, a cow." And so they did that for about 5 farms. And then after that, Seth would say, "Hey, look, kids, look, it's got some more cows." We've already seen them. They started to become invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And so Seth said, well, what happens if they saw a bright, shiny purple cow in the middle of those black and brown and white cows? And, if that happened, and that happened 30 years ago, they'd still be talking about that bright, shiny purple cow. So it's what makes you unique? What makes you stand out from your competition? What do you do better? Why should people choose you over your competition?
Mm-hmm.
Why should people trust their dollars with you and not with somebody else? You want to make sure that's really clear. Another big mistake that I had was, I had a great answer to people's question, but my sales process wasn't defined. I didn't have a clear sales workflow where I made the first conversation. I'm not going to ask you to marry me on my first date, right? So there's a courtship, there's a nurturing process. And so we created a 4-step process in our sales process. It's very distinct. And if they don't go past this one, they don't go any further. And if they go to the next one, we get going, we qualify them, we get them excited about it, we see if they're a good fit, then boom, we go into the next step, which is our growth plan. That's the one thing that I wanted to offer your clientele, that we'll waive our normal fee on that. It's a huge process. We can talk about that later. But then if they get with a growth plan, then we book them into their first coaching meeting. So we have a very distinct sales process. And there's a lot of companies that are just kind of casual with their sales process. And 3 words I think are going to be really helpful to David, to your people, is casualness causes casualties. Casualness causes casualties.
Mhm.
And so what we do in our growth plan is we find out areas in your business where you have been casual that we need to bring a level of excellence to. And that may be a world of difference. It may be a double or tripling of your revenue and 5xing your profit. These are actual returns and actual results we've been able to get with our clients.
It's beautiful. It's crazy. The biggest problems has made me the person that I am now, right? And when it hurts the most, if you're humble enough to learn from them, you succeed, right? And for me, for
Humility is
example, the
very
biggest problem was
important.
marketing. I never paid attention to marketing. It was
Yeah.
all word of mouth. We were so good at writing custom applications that people would just refer me. But that's a very slow way to grow. Now we have a formal digital marketing team and we are doing great and we're automating leads and all that. Is what you were doing with your paper-based marketing, right?
Yeah,
Without that, you couldn't have grown a $40 million company,
exactly.
right?
These are just some of the processes that are some big mistakes that I've made. And another big mistake that I made, it cost me a lot of money. I'll give you two more. One is that I wanted to be the boss. I wanted to be the one in charge. I wanted to be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And so I smothered the staff that I had and didn't get near as much productivity out of them. Now I've created what we call a self-managing company. I've got that term from Dan Sullivan, the amazing guy. But so our company is self-managing because the employees own all the processes. I just oversee them. As a matter of fact, I even have somebody else overseeing them all, and I'm just going to fine tune. But I'm busy with the next project of growing in Redmond Growth. You know, our next expansion that I'm working on, because that's more of my expertise. And so, making sure that you're really humble to listen and learn from those people that you've hired and demand that they come up with the ideas and help implement them. Another last one I would have to say is I lost about $2 million on this. And I call my wife, who's my advisor. She doesn't work in the business with me. And many times husbands and wife do not work well in a business. We just don't think there's something wrong with you if you can't do that. Just it doesn't work. And but I do ask for her to be my advisor, and I call my wife God's sexy voice in my life.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
And so the time that I did not insist on moving forward with agreement are the times that I lost money. That's when I lost money. And so I'm right now, I'm looking at buying a business. I'm looking at investing in another business, a pretty significant part here. And if we're not in agreement, we're not going to go forward. And so that's a really important thing to know is there's a lot of couples that one of the couples, a lot of times it's the husband, but it can be the wife too, but they steamroll the other person and kind of force them into submission of doing it. And the differences there are meant to strengthen you, not to torment you. So respect is value in the difference. So it's very important to move forward with agreement and respect, especially if you're married. So,
it's interesting because the last two problems that were the biggest one for you are all around ego, isn't it? And for me, ego is
responsible for unveil that. You're not supposed to unveil that, man. You're just can't hide anything from you, but that's exactly what it is. But go ahead.
Ego. It's all ego. I am the best. I can do everything. People depend on me. If I wasn't for me, there was no company. And how can I ask my wife if she doesn't even know what I'm working on? It's all ego. And then you miss all these hints of advice that could change your business dramatically.
Exactly. This is so accurate, David. Such an accurate depiction of what happens so many times.
Right. So for the audience, if you want to learn a bit more about ego throughout the ages, read this book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. amazing book based on Stoicism, but it really defines it. Even when you get into anxiety, you're invoking your ego. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have ego. Ego is identity of the self, but you have to know what your place is so that you are open to learning from others and realizing that we have a world of 8 billion people, that you might not be the best one.
Right. Exactly. And this is, it's really, I was just talking to a man, my last client, and he's making $10 million a year. And we're building a platform for him to add a zero to that, where he can make $100 million a year, not in gross revenue, but in profits. But I was with him when he was at about making 500,000 or 600,000, maybe $1 million a year. Now he's 10x that, making $10 million a year. And it's amazing that when I talked to him, he asked me about feedback on things, how humble he is, how soft he is, and how eager he is to learn and to grow and to adjust. It's amazing. He makes enough money. He doesn't have to work ever again in his life. And yet he's still always learning. He's like a little kid, just asking all these endless questions. And just that's really something to learn for all of us, isn't it?
Tim, that's a great insight, and I wanted to ask you this: what motivates you? Why do you keep doing this? If you sold a company that was making $40 million a year and you probably got set for the rest of your life, what wakes you up in the morning and keep wanting to do this?
Well, I told you about Mike and just creating those kind of stories where we forge a whole new future for people. It gives me a lot of, I think I'm on an adrenaline rush with that. I also, and I'm not shoving anything down, I hope you're comfortable with this, but I'm not shoving anything down anybody's throat, but I look at the first verse in the Bible that I read. It says, in the beginning, God did the thing he loves to do, and it set the purpose for us. The first verb in the Bible says, in the beginning, God created. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we're created in the image of God. And so we're created to create. And so if I'm not creating, I've lost my purpose. Mm-hmm. And creation can be a hug or a kind word. It can be building a product or perfecting a service and serving people. It can be all kinds of different ways. But if I'm not creating, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. And fulfilling my purpose is going to extend the quality and I believe the quantity of my years. And so I'm excited it's like I joined God, and what God is doing around me is creating things to help enrich the lives of other people. And that's what gets me up early in the morning, every morning.
That's beautiful. I never heard an answer like that, brother. So let me tell you my story. After the heart attack, I learned to become a real entrepreneur. I automated my business. By the end of 2014, the business was fully automated. I was working probably 10% of my time. And I started traveling the world with my wife and my kids. So we would take these mini retirements for 2-3 months every winter. And we went throughout the world. And it was beautiful. And I kept the business running. I stopped selling and marketing, and the company was growing between 10 and 15% a year, just out of doing the right thing with my culture. So I just focused on my team, and I said, if my team is good, my clients will be good. And so it was a complete reversal from what I was doing before, when I was getting them to be soldiers, and I realized that I don't own them. They are not my slaves. I am privileged to work with them. So, but what happened is, after 5 years of doing this, with absolute no ambition, just having a lifestyle business, 2017 comes around, and my kids go to university, and we did it with my wife by ourselves, and we got bored. It wasn't the same.
We got bored.
Yeah, and so that created another problem. So my wife said, either we retire fully or we grow the business. And I told her, I don't know how to grow the business. The last time I tried, I had a heart attack. So that was the first time I hired a business coach like you. And problem is that I focus back on my team, and now I want to grow the business so that I can retire my people. I have people that have been working for me for over 15, 16 years.
Wow.
But I remember that I can go watch Netflix for the rest of my life. And I've been blessed to do that since 2014. Why do I tell you this? Because sometimes I fall into the ambition trap, and I make more risks that I don't need to make.
Right.
And I always follow on my face, but also I cannot just go and watch Netflix all the time. I need to be creating something.
So good.
Because it's always adding value. So it's that balance, right? I'm so blessed that I reached that balance. Right. I took 2 months off this summer. I came back and the business was running better than I left it. And that allows me also to co-create. So now what I'm focusing on is grabbing another business owner, putting our two unique abilities together and create something new.
Beautiful.
And it's beautiful. As long as I remember that I don't need the money anymore, and I'm doing this to keep creating. That's it, and to keep adding value. Right?
That's I'm singing from the same hymn book here, right there. That's exactly my song. I mean, I plan on working all the way as long as I live. I want to live even past 100, and it's going to be beyond my financial need. But what I constantly have, regardless of my amount of finances, I have a need to create, a need to impact, a need to hopefully enrich the lives of others, to put a smile on somebody's face. It makes the world go round that much smoother. And so that's really what gets me up. I know when I'm in the middle of a challenge, especially challenges that I made for myself, then I know it's in a learning situation. I learn to count it all joy when I come into these challenges like this, because I know that I'm getting stronger on the inside, and I want to be, the tears that I shed from the pains of the past are going to be a help. It's going to be a healing ointment to those people in businesses and even their marriages. My wife and I, we work with couples from time to time to help them with their marriages.
Mm-hmm. And
so this is the kind of stuff that just staying involved in the creative process is so important.
And it's funny because I do a daily devotional with my wife, and yesterday we got this passage in the New Testament where it says, "Be content with what you got." If you seek the kingdom of God first, everything else will be provided. But it doesn't say don't keep growing. It just says be content with what you have right now, and that is, I wish I would have learned that 20 years ago, because the problem is that I was always putting my happiness when I reached this certain amount of money.
Right.
So I'll be happy when I make $1 million, and then I made $1 million, and I felt empty still. Oh, I'll be happy when I make this much more. And every time I was raising the bar, going to an empty place at the end, and sacrificing my wife, my health, everything for getting that extra number. But what if you are already happy with what you have right now and still reach the goal?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's I mean, a contented person is an amazing, when you're grateful and contented, it's almost like it insulates you from being destroyed. And one of my favorite passages in the Bible is 1 Timothy 6:6, where it says, "Godliness with contentment produces great wealth."
Wow.
So godliness, which is acting and thinking like God, all things are possible. And contentment, the word contentment is very unique. And it's not just to put up with, or just to be anything happens, but contentment actually is a military term. It really means to separate yourself from something so it doesn't control you. And so contentment is to be in this world and in your business and growing your business, but you're not controlled by the losses or the gains or the money coming in, the money coming out. You're content. You got a sense of well-being outside of that. And so it's almost like a stoic separation that we can live in, that gives us power to take the leap when we need to take a leap and our business needs us to take a leap, and to not take a foolish leap just because we feel fearful here. And it just gives us a lot more wisdom as we grow and navigate our company. So I
Beautiful.
would say I love what you're saying on that.
Awesome. Uh, Quick question for you.
Yes.
What advice would you give somebody that is about to start their own business or they're in business and they're just beginning? What would you tell them? What was the most important thing they need to do?
Okay. So uh they may not like me what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say this. We built our first 100 clients with cold calling. In the
Mhm.
cold calling, we became a flourishing business, a very successful coaching business with a 99.75% rejection rate.
99.75% rejection
Yes,
rate.
we got as a client one out of every 400 people that we called.
Wow.
And so I just built up our team, and
Mhm.
we just had a lot of people calling, and the numbers worked out. At times it was challenging, but here's when you first start with a business, you've got to have clients, and to get clients you got to knock on the door.
Mhm.
And there's a great book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, written by Chet Holmes, who passed away soon after he wrote it back about 13 years ago. And he talks about when you're selling anything, there's only 3% of your market that's ready to buy what you have to sell anyway. So you think, God, man, I've talked to 20 people and they all said no. I said, well, talk to 100, and you might run into two or three that might be interested, you know.
Mhm.
So there's a real lack of tenacity of what it really takes to get a business going. I have my son, I've got three sons and a daughter, and my my youngest son was a college athlete. He's got a body built like a Greek statue, and he's has this online fitness program that he's selling, and it wasn't going so well because he wasn't putting energy into it. I said, it's just like football, son. If you don't put anything in it, you're not going to get anything back out of it.
Mhm.
So I remember when he just started pouring heart and soul into it, just put all kinds of energy into it, he
Mhm.
just had a record month, and it just happened. And so that's how it is just understand that to get your business really going, it's going to take twice or three times more energy than you think you ought to give.
Yeah.
Be willing to give it, because once it gets going, and I call mastery is hugging a thorn bush for 5 years.
Mhm.
It's not just for 2 minutes. Oh, it hurts. But hug the thorn bush for 5 years, and then you'll become a master at it.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into business with anybody that doesn't have at least a 10-year commitment to that business.
You're so bright, brother. And I can see it with my own life experiences. People think that they're gonna get freedom instantly. No, you're gonna suffer at least 5 to 10 years. And people that don't do it, that by some coincidence they get successful within the first 1 or 2 years, they get ruined for the rest of their business lives.
They get comfort. They allow
Right?
boredom or comfort or second chancers that destroy our business growth. Yeah.
But the promise is there. Like if you are able to go through the shadows of the valley of death and you persist, there's freedom at the end of that valley.
Boom.
That's where I
Yes.
am. That's where you are, right?
Yes.
And it's worth it,
Telling you.
guaranteed.
I'm glad that is the truth. That's verdad, mi amigo. So
Brother, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to abuse it. One last question, Tim. If you had access to a billboard on the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
um well, if I'm selling my business, it's one thing, but if I'm going to give advice to business owners, I give advice to business owners is never give up.
Never give
Never
up.
give up. Uh, never, 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 never give up. And it may be that you try a business and there might be a time where you have to like shut that business down and try something else. But just when you pour your heart and soul into something, it will respond. And if the only thing that you get from that is learning, you walk away a wiser, more equipped person ready to take on the world.
Beautiful.
And I remember I had one employee that really messed up, and on three occasions he asked me to fire him. I said, at this point, I got too much invested in you to fire you. You're becoming more valuable with every day that goes by, and now he's one of my top coaches.
Amazing.
Brilliant. He's just doing an excellent job. So never give up. Keep on moving. Go forward with it. And I tell you, David, if you have some of your folks that are business owners, we have this thing called a business growth plan, and it's about a 45-minute process. But we find out where you're at, the weaknesses and the strengths. We find out where you are revenue wise, where you want to be in 3 years. We redesign your business model and get you into a more of a full capacity business model. That's a powerful process. And then we give you at least 8 or 10 concrete steps of how you're going to get to that 3-year business goal. And it's powerful. With many businesses, it's like it's guaranteed. I'm not going to guarantee with people I don't work with, but it's going to add another $100,000 of profit to your business. And so for any people that want that, I would normally charge $2,500 for that growth plan, because it's a very equipped. You got a whole plan. If you want us to implement it, we're a do it for you business coaching program. So we help do it for you and we do it with you. But if you want to have that business growth plan, and you have a business, and you get a hold of me, Tim at redmondgrowth.com, or get a hold of redmondgrowth.com, look me up. And if you say, hey, listen, I love David's podcast, I love David, and I've left him a 5-star review. And if they email me, or they go to the website and say I was on David's program, then we'll waive that $2,500 fee. And we'll
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. That's so generous. Yeah. And for people that are listening, the only reason why I'm still here is because of my business coaches. As soon as I hired my business coach, I started to grow exponentially. So what you're doing is of so much value. So Tim, thank you so much. Can you repeat that again, where they can find you?
Yeah, they can email me, Tim at redmondgrowth.com, REDMOND, growth, GROWTH.com, Tim at Redmond Growth, or just go to the Redmond Growth site and fill out one of the online forms that pop up to contact us. And just in the comments, just say I was on David's podcast. I love him. I left him a 5-star review, and I'd like to get a growth plan, and boom, we'll get a hold of you and get it all set up. They will love it. I promise you, they will love it. So fabulous.
Tim, brother, keep blessing the world. Thank you for being here. And this is your house. You are always welcome to come back. Have a good one.
God bless you, my friend.
Blessings.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.